Around 90% of intermediate English learners keep making the same mistakes. They say things like in the bus, at Monday, married with a doctor, and no matter how many times they're corrected, it never sticks. But here's the truth. The top 10% are the ones who actually sound natural. You see, they don't just memorize rules. They understand something that others don't. The logic behind the phrase. So what I've done is collected research across thousands of native examples to show you the 10 biggest preposition mistakes and one simple system you can master in literally minutes to help you think in English like a native speaker instead of constantly translating in your head. Let's start with something that almost everyone gets wrong. Married to and married with. Most learners say, he's married with a doctor. It sounds okay, right? But in English, it's not. We say, he's married to a doctor. So, why to? Think of to as a connection, like a line joining one person to another. Married to means two people are linked together. But with changes things completely. He's married with two children. Here, with means together with something else. So, do you see the difference? To means a connection between two people. With shows addition, something extra in the situation. So, whenever you're unsure, just picture a line joining one person to another. That's your signal to use to, not with. And that line, that connection, is the first part of our mental picture system. But what happens when instead of connection, we want to talk about space that you can step into? Next, we have in the picture or on the picture. This is another one that confuses everyone. There's a dog on the picture. Sounds okay, right? But that depends on what you actually mean. If the dog is part of the image, printed or drawn inside the frame, we say in the picture. But if the dog is a real dog and is just physically stood on top of the picture, then we say it's on the picture. The dog is on the picture. So how do you remember it? Just picture a surface. If something is inside that space, use in. If something is touching or resting on top, use on. And you see how that fits our mental picture system? It's the same logic as before. You're not memorizing, you're visualizing. So now we've done connection and space. But now what about movement and place? Why do we say arrive at the airport, but arrive in London? Okay, so here's one that tricks almost everyone. I arrived to the airport. Sounds natural? Maybe, but in English, we never say that. We say I arrived at the airport or I arrived in London. So what's the difference? Think back to our mental picture system. At marks a point, a single dot on your map with one exact location. In marks an area, a space with boundaries that you can move around inside. So you arrive at a specific point, at the airport, at the office, at the station. You arrive in a larger area. I arrived in London. I arrived in Japan. So picture it like this. At is a pinpoint, in is a region or a boundary or a space. And once you can see that image, the rule sticks forever. No memorizing needed. Now we've talked about places, but what if we switch to time? So this same mental picture explains when we do things too. So let's jump into that. Okay, so time works exactly like space. Many learners mix these up. I'll finish it by the morning. I'll finish it in the morning. Both sound fine, but they don't mean the same thing. In the morning means inside that time period of the morning, somewhere in between sunrise and noon. By the morning means before that time period has started. So picture it like this. That's why we say complete the report by Monday. This means before Monday comes. I'll do it in the morning means somewhere inside that period. So you can literally see the difference. In equals inside the time. By equals before the edge of the time. And just like that, space and time follow the same picture rule. But what if you still mix them up? Well, actually, I've built a free resource for you. that goes over all the common mistakes in English. It's a digital workbook that I've made in Notion. I'll leave a link to it in the description and you can play around with it. It's basically a 6-day free mini course that will help all of the little mistakes that you make on a daily basis that stop you from becoming fluent. So yeah, links in the description. Okay, so we've talked about time, and now let's go back to talking about place, because the next mistake happens every day when people want to talk about where they live. The difference between at and on in addresses. Most learners mix these up all the time. I live on 10 Western Road. It sounds okay, but it's not quite right. When you talk about the street only, you say on Western Road. When you include the house number, you say at number 10 Western Road. Think of the street as a line, and your house is just a point on that line. So we live on a line, but at a point. And this is the same mental picture again. And once you can visualize it, it just clicks. No memorizing needed. And here's where things get interesting. Sometimes the preposition doesn't just change the place. It changes your role in a situation. Let me show you how this works with hospitals. I'm in the hospital, or I'm at the hospital. Both are correct, but they mean different things. At the hospital means you're there for a reason. Maybe visiting, maybe working, or maybe waiting in reception. You're at the place, just like when you're at school or at the airport. But being in the hospital means that you're a patient. You've been admitted into the hospital, and you're inside the hospital system. The same rule works for other institutions too. So in prison means you're actually a prisoner inside the prison system. At the prison means you just work there, or maybe you're visiting. So what's the mental picture here? At is the point, it's the place itself. But in is the boundary. You're inside the system, you're inside its world. And once you can see that, the difference should never confuse you again. Okay, so from buildings to transport, and the next one might surprise you even more because it follows the exact same picture, but this time you're moving. So let's talk about trains, buses, and cars. You probably learned this rule ages ago, but almost no one understands why it works like this. We say, I'm on the bus, I'm on the train, I'm on the plane, but in the car. So think about how you enter those spaces. So when you step onto a bus, train, or plane, you move through an aisle and you share a big open space with others. When you step into a car, the door closes around you and it's small, private, and enclosed. So on is for shared spaces, open movement, or could be a surface. In is for enclosed spaces, or could be like a private bubble. So the mental picture stays the same again. So that's why we say, I left my phone on the bus. I forgot my bag in the car. It's not about memorizing, it's about seeing the picture. Okay, so lesson number 8 is depend on. Here's a mistake I hear every single day. It depends of the weather. It might sound logical, and in many languages that might be how you say it, but in English we always say it depends on the weather. So why do we use on? Imagine a tower of blocks. Each block needs one below to stay standing. If you pull the bottom block out, the top falls. That's what depend on means. One thing rests on another for support. If you say depends on the weather, you're really saying the result rests on the weather. The weather is supporting the result. It's such a tiny word, but it flips the meaning completely. And again, once you can see that mental picture, you'll never confuse them again. And now that you can understand support, let's move to direction and focus, because one small preposition decides whether you're looking at something or into something. You can say both, look in the mirror or look at the mirror, but they describe two very different types of looking. When you say look into the mirror, you're looking at the reflection and you're seeing yourself. When you say look at the mirror, you're looking at the mirror itself, not the reflection. Maybe you're noticing that the mirror is dusty or has a crack. So in our mental picture system, in is the depth or inside the focus. At is we're looking at the surface, the point of focus. Every preposition almost tells a little story. And once you can start seeing that, English stops feeling random. You're not memorizing rules anymore. You're watching meaning unfold. Okay, and finally, lesson 10. At work or in work? Let's finish with one you probably hear every day. I'm at work or I'm in work. Both are correct, but again, they don't mean the same thing. At work means you're there right now, doing your job. It's about the location. You're physically at the place that you work. In work means you have a job. You're employed. It's about status. You're inside that category of employment. So again, same mental picture. At marks a specific point. You're at your desk, you're at the office, but in marks a wider state, being part of work life itself. That's also why we say out of work when someone loses their job. They've stepped outside of that boundary of employment. So once you can see it, it's all consistent. Every preposition follows the same mental picture system. So now that you've seen all 10, let's test how clearly you can see the mental picture. I'll read 5 quick sentences and you fill in the missing preposition. My cousin is married a soldier. 3, 2, 1. My cousin is married to a soldier. Number 2. My wife looks beautiful. The picture. 3, 2, 1. My wife looks beautiful in the picture. 3. I arrived the airport. 3, 2, 1. I arrived at the airport. 4. It depends the weather. 3, 2, 1. It depends on the weather. And the last one, I live 10 Western Road. 3, 2, 1. I live at 10 Western Road. Okay, so how many did you get right? Type your score in the comments. I'd love to see which preposition really clicked for you today. So now you've seen it. Prepositions aren't so random. They follow one simple system based on the pictures in your mind. And that's the logic that native speakers use without even thinking about it. If you start visualizing English like this, you'll stop memorizing and you'll start understanding. If you want to go deeper, I've made a free PDF for this lesson and I'm going to link it in the description. And if you're stuck at intermediate level and you want to understand the secrets that nobody's talking about how to level up your English and get closer to fluency, then watch this video next.